The crisis at the Richards Bay port terminals has deepened with the recent decision by Transnet to suspend coal loads to be processed at the port. The decision to only process the cargo of trucks whose shipping vessels have already been nominated for processing comes amid safety concerns and traffic congestion in Richards Bay and surrounding areas. Meanwhile, the truck drivers from Mpumalanga and North West say that they are frustrated by the lack of communication between their employers and Transnet.
Frustration and safety concerns continue to mount as trucks queue on the N2 between Richards Bay and Mtuba on the province's north coast. The truck congestion has been caused by Transnet's apparent inability to provide sufficient freight rail and port capacity to transport bulk minerals such as coal, iron ore and manganese for export. A worldwide increase in the demand for coal has brought hundreds of trucks onto the route, leading to South Africa's main coal export terminal in Richards Bay. Truck drivers who've been waiting for days to offload coal at the port say they are in the dark about the latest developments.
No communication, because they only want us to jump the queue and to go inside to offload. That's all what is asking. When are you offloading? Can you please jump the queue so that we can work? We need loads. That's all what they want.
Nothing, we're just, nobody cares about us, we're just standing here not knowing when we'll move forward or backward, we don't know.
Only looking for loads. So you see, that's why we are under pressure always. We are under pressure always, and if you can see, most of the trucks that are jumping the queue is the one that we must make targets. Even in my company, they want 4 loads a week, 7 days 4 loads. You get here, you get frustrated to stand here 2 days with 1 load. It's impossible. It's impossible.
The local municipality has warned of legal action against government and its state entities.
As a mayor who is, a leader of government in this area, really, I am tired of listening to, stories and promises. That's why, we are resorting to courts, as the last means. This is the only thing available now to us, because if we don't take that route, then the city is going to be financially depleted to the point where we won't be able to deliver basic services in terms of the functions which are allocated to us as a local government sphere.
The Road Freight Association says the truck congestion could have been avoided if Transnet and government had not allowed its freight rail to collapse.
And a lot of people have actually asked us the questions, but your road, why are you raising concerns that rail is not working? Is this not bringing more business to you? Are you not happier? Well, yeah, it does bring more business, but we need to understand, we've got to be rational and clear about this. It brings with it other issues, you can say evils, a whole lot of other issues. And just look at what's happened in the last 3 years. Communities along routes where trucks drive up in arms, infrastructure is collapsing, not because the trucks are overloaded or because there's any sort of other thing happening, other than those roads were not built for the continual mass weights.
Meanwhile, Transnet said that it was locked in meetings with stakeholders to find an amicable solution. For SABC News, I'm Jade Paulser in Durban.
While staying with that particular crisis, we talk more about this with Mike Walwyn, who is the director of the South African Association of Freight Forwarders. Mike, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. So the dire situation that we're facing in the country, we know that the SARS, for instance, has raised this issue around the potential money that South Africa has lost, the fiscus has lost through Transnet and Transnet's inability to do what its core mandate is. The Reserve Bank has also mentioned this. And now we're facing this particular situation. What do you think the solution is?
Good morning, yes, and thank you very much. The solutions, I think we know more or less what they are, but of course they will take time to implement. In our bureaucracy, they take longer. I think what we are seeing now is a willingness on Transnet's part to move a bit quicker. Just back to Richards Bay for a moment. A few minutes ago, you or somebody on the program said that the problem was increased volumes of our commodities flowing through the port. That's not correct at all. In fact, last year, the coal terminal at Richards Bay ship 20 million tons less than it can because of the complete failure of the rail service. So that's where the problem is, and Gavin Kelly mentioned it just now. The rail service is dysfunctional, doesn't get much cargo in. There are not that many ships loading at the coal terminal, which is on the one side of the harbour. The other terminals are all on the other side, and that's where the manganese and however much coal they can get is going through there as well. It wasn't designed to do that. So back to the main point, the rail function, TFR's problem has become everybody's problem. Now, you heard a couple of truckers. It's almost inhuman to expect these guys to sit out there alongside the N2. There are no facilities, no shops, no toilets, nothing. And they must just sit and take this on the back. No. I know that the municipality's got a problem, and it's very difficult to find a place to deal with these trucks. But blocking them off completely makes no sense whatsoever to us. Fixing the problem does. Now, you may ask, apart from Transnet, how are we going to do that? And I'm speaking now about all our ports, because they're all in trouble one way or another. And that is to look at the many foreign models where you have public-private partnerships. I'm not talking about privatization. That is a dirty word, and it's not necessary anyway. I'll give you an example. I was in Maputo not so long ago, talking to their port authority, and they've got a system there where DP World, one of the world's big terminal operators, is in partnership with the Mozambique government, the government holding 51% and DP holding 49%, and DP having operational freedom. That works very well. We think that a model like that or something similar is where we should be going in our ports. And we think it needs to be done with urgency, because even as things stand now, we don't see much of an end to this crisis before maybe March next year.
Yep.
So it's not a happy situation, but it has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with as a matter of extreme priority. We think it's, in fact, more damaging than the Eskom saga.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what's clear, Mike, is that Transnet is not fit for purpose, and the Minister of Public Enterprises had also said that part of the solution would be also to bring in the private players. My concern sometimes is because we're speaking here about human beings that are sitting on boards, human beings that are in executive positions, some of them also coming from the private sector. What is it with the model that Transnet has that makes it incapable of providing its core mandate if these particular individuals are also individuals who come from the private sector and where the private sector is actually succeeding?
Yes, that's true, but there are a lot of things that mitigate against that. Now, I've said at length over a couple of years now that the problem at Transnet has been what I call a PPE problem, and it's got nothing to do with COVID and masks. It's got everything to do with people, productivity and equipment, and there are deficiencies in all of those areas. Equipment is a matter of maintenance firstly, and replacement of goods or the equipment as and when it becomes necessary. Now, it looks as if the replacement story is better on track now. We're hearing about orders imminently about to be placed and about deliveries that could happen within enough time to get a few things going by March. But there are other problems, in Richards Bay particularly. The rail thing is a systemic problem. And yes, it has to do with some of the locomotives that aren't working, but I think it also has to do with the people running the show. You ask about if there were people from the private sector in there, yes, certainly some were recruited. You know that at top management, the entire top management of Transnet is basically gone, and we have new people to deal with. And the acting CEO, I might say, is a lady who has years of experience in this field, and we have some high hopes there. We also know that there's been a short list of candidates for that position, which we don't know much about. And that doesn't fill us with confidence as it stands at the moment. So we don't think just changing the people is going to solve it. Productivity is the other issue I mentioned. Not so appropriate at Richards Bay. As I've said, I think I said anyway, the coal terminal there is an efficient terminal. It's one of the biggest in the world, and it works very well when it's got coal. But it can only accept coal on rail, and there is where the big problem is. So there is not a question of equipment so much at Richards Bay.
Yeah.
But productivity for sure. And in our container terminals, productivity is shocking.
Productivity shocking. The decision that was taken by Transnet back in 2021 to offer severance packages to some of its staff members to try and reduce its wage bill. In hindsight, do you think that that was the right decision? Also considering that now Transnet is speaking about actually rehiring some of them.
No, I certainly don't think it was the right decision. I mean, what happened then, and it always happens this way, when you offer voluntary severance in the bid to cut costs, the people who run and jump and grab the voluntary severance are the best ones, the skilled people, because they know they can go somewhere else. So you're left with a reduced level of skills. Not anybody's fault. Those people left on the ground are strong, hard workers, but they are not necessarily competent to do the job. So when you take over 700 people in that way out of an organization, 700 key people, of course there's going to be a negative impact.
How much is this costing the economy?
You know, we can throw numbers around all day long. I mean, at the moment, our research people in our organization are talking about, I think, in the order of 7 billion rand a day. And I think it's worse than that. There are unidentifiable costs in there that you can't necessarily count up front, but they're there, all right. We're thinking in terms of, for example, the trucking fraternity. Now, I know of a few SMME truckers who've closed their doors. They can't operate because if you can only do one trip a day in a port, you're not going to make any money. You have to be able to do multiple trips, and the ports are so poor at the moment that they can't do more than one trip. So now we're looking at job losses, business closures. We're looking in, for example, the fruit industry, where if the fruit is not getting to market, export markets when it should, then there are going to be losses there. That can also lead to job losses. So there's a cascading effect, negative, from all of these things right through our economy, which is why I say this is as big a problem, if not bigger, than Eskom.
Yeah. A final one, Mike. What do you think the immediate priority should be considering the backlog that we currently have in Richards Bay?
Yeah, well, the immediate priority really, and the only real solution, is to get that railway line running, to call in whoever they need to do it, and to get it running at full capacity, because that will take the queues off the N2. That's all it needs. I'm not saying it's simple, because it's gone so far now, it's not going to be easy to fix. But that is the only answer. Get the rail running again.
Mike, thank you so much for your time. That is Mike Walwyn, who is the director of the South African Association of Freight Forwarders. And as you heard there, he says that this is costing the economy 7 billion rand a daily, and also looking at the direct and indirect cost of all of these. It's an ongoing problem with the Transnet, and of course you know that the executive at Transnet, some of them have resigned, including the CEO. But what is the solution?